सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्तन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। What happened?
The wire is going over the front.
Yeah. Often have problem wearing this ornament, you know. So continuing a discussion on the value of values, we said that there are some inner factors which come in the way of our practicing a value. We identified anger as one such factor, krodha. Greed is another such factor, lobha. Lust is a third factor, kama. So kama, krodha, lobha. If you can remember these three words, kama, krodha, lobha. So these are the impulses which, when they take over us, when we are controlled by these impulses, then we lose the freedom to do what we should be doing or we would like to do. As human beings, we are endowed with free will. Free will means freedom of choice. Ideally, we have the freedom to make a choice in every situation. Choice between what to do, what not to do, whether to do, whether not to do, what to do, what not to do, how to do. This faculty of freedom of choice we have. And as best as we know, only human being enjoys this free will or freedom of choice, which is a great endowment. It's a great blessing. If we judiciously employ this faculty of choice, then it becomes a blessing to us. But unfortunately, we also have freedom to abuse the freedom, meaning that it is likely that we may make a wrong choice in a given situation. Meaning that when there is freedom, there is always a freedom to abuse the freedom. Thus, it is quite likely that we may make a wrong choice. When would we make a wrong choice? When we are impelled by one of those impulses, then in all probabilities we will make a wrong choice. When we make a wrong choice, meaning that in a given situation we have freedom to tell the truth or tell untruth. Freedom to be honest or not honest. This is called free will. Then, when this free will is abused under the influence of one of those impulses, then we are forced to or compelled to violate the value, meaning that we will find ourselves telling a lie, find ourselves doing the wrong thing, because later on we regret that choice. Which means that when the choice was made at that time, we were not under control. If we are in control, then we would make the right choice. Therefore, to be always under the control in a situation becomes necessary. To make right choices in our life, it becomes necessary that we should always be under the control of the situation, under control of our mind. Then we can make a deliberate choice. So, either our behavior is deliberate, and when we are deliberate, then we can deliberate upon the pros and cons of a given choice and then can make a choice. It is likely that even after deliberating, we may make a wrong choice. That's not the point. Point is that we make the choice. Because if we made a mistake in making a choice, then later on we know that we made a mistake and we will be able to correct ourselves. But if we did not make the choice, if my anger made the choice, my greed made the choice, then we will never learn because we did not make the choice. So that is why the importance of understanding these impulses in the mind and slowly extricating ourselves from their hold becomes important for us to enjoy the gift of free will that we have. When would that happen? I should have the incentive or the motivation to make the right choice also. I should have the motivation to speak truth. I should have the motivation to be honest, to be kind. So we asked a question, or our mind asks a question, what is in it for me? What do I stand to gain by being honest? What do I get? We discussed in the morning how sometimes something that I value is at stake. It may be money which is at stake. If I tell truth, then I am likely to perhaps have to lose some money. It is likely that I may be exposed, I may be shamed, meaning some kind of consequences are there. Because of value for money, value for my pride, value for my image, value for my position. So when these values are there, and then when they clash, now as we said that these are assimilated values. We know what we stand to gain by having money. We stand to gain by our image, by our prestige, etc. So we know what is the value of all these things. It is called assimilated value. We don't have to be told. But as yet I do not know what do I stand to gain by being honest. And therefore very often I do not find any value or any benefit in being honest. In fact, very often there is a conclusion. The Swami, you keep on preaching us and teaching us to follow values and dharma. And we find in the world all around ourselves that there is a flagrant violation of dharma. There are people who deliberately violate these values. And through dishonest means they seem to be going ahead in their career, in their life. People seem to be able to amass wealth and stuff like things that I value. They seem to get away with by, in spite of being dishonest. In fact, sometimes people come to conclusion that you can never become wealthy, never can become successful unless you compromise these values. If you keep on following dharma, being righteous, then people will think that you are weak and you are and whatever it is, and they always seem to finish last. And I want to finish first. I have value for success. So, value behind all value is success. The reason why I want more money is because I think that's what will bring me success. That I want more prestige or fame or power is because I look upon them as means of success. So success, I guess, is the most important value. So next question is, what is this success? Can somebody tell me, what do you think is success? I mean, everybody wants success, all right. Usually success means fulfilling our desire. That I wanted a certain score in my test, I got it, I'm successful. I wanted admission in a certain school, I got it, I'm successful. I wanted a certain job, I got it, I'm successful. I wanted promotion, I got it, I'm successful. So generally speaking, fulfilling a desire is looked upon as success. So then what happens to me when my desire is fulfilled? Tell me. You wanted admission in medical school of your choice and you got it. How do you feel? Happy. You feel happy. You know, why do you feel happy?
Because your goal is success.
Pardon me?
Because your goal is achieved.
No, I'm not asking you. I'm asking our friends here. Yes, your goal is achieved. So what happens to you? That was the question.
I think there can be like a deeper goal. Getting into medical school could be just one part of the goal, but eventually our goal could be to help others. So there could be like layers of desire in there.
So what would happen if you help others?
It would make us happy.
Right. So what is that happiness? What happens to you when you're happy?
You feel good.
Feel good. Feel good about what?
Ourselves.
Very good. So when are you happy? When you feel good about yourself. Yeah, I agree with you. So how come, when do you feel good about yourself?
When I help others, and that makes me feel good, yeah.
Exactly. So when you help others, it makes you feel good. Why do you think so? You're pretty close, go ahead.
It could be like a selfless act, or like the happiness could just reflect back to us.
Yeah, let me fill in the gap there. You feel happy when you help others or see others happy is because if you were in that position, that is what you would have expected from others. So when we are able to display to others, or we are able to impart to others what we expect from them, that is when we feel happy. You follow? I expect others to help me, and if I reach out to somebody and help them, which may involve a certain amount of pain to me or exertion to me, sometimes it's not easy. I mean, you have to go out of a way sometimes. And you have to make a small sacrifice of time, energy, etc., or sometimes money to help. You have to part with something valuable to you. Part with your time, your talent, your treasure to help. So that parting is somewhat painful, but at the same time, when you find that what you did made somebody happy, that you were instrumental in making somebody happy, you feel good about yourself because that is what you would have expected out of other person if you were in that situation. Is that right? Because you have followed a universal norm of the universe. We say that everybody has an expectation of what others should do, and inherently we know that that is the expectation others have of us also. That I like that others should help me when I am in need of help. And I know therefore that others also expect me to help them when they are in need. And therefore when I am able to fulfill that, I feel good about myself because what I did is in harmony with a norm or universal order, a universal value of doing to others what we like to be done to us. Not doing to others what we do not want them to do to us, but the same token, doing to others what we like them to do to us. So answer was very good. I feel good about myself. And remember this. So you felt happy because you felt good about yourself. I can say further that you felt worthy about yourself, that you did something worthy. You may feel proud of yourself, but better than pride is that you feel worthy, that I did something worthwhile. Even a small act of kindness makes you happy. Because you expect others also to be kind to you. And therefore, when you are able to do to others what you expect, you feel good about yourself, worthy of yourself. In your own perception, you approve yourself. In your own perception, you accept yourself. And that is when the happiness comes. When I accept myself. I approve of myself. I am satisfied with myself. That is when I am happy. This other happiness does come from watching movies and doing, enjoying things at the sense level. There's some happiness does come. A small percentage of our happiness does come from all that stuff. But the primary source of happiness is feeling good about myself, feeling worthy of myself, approving myself, finding myself acceptable, approvable in my own perception. In the morning we said that we are always judging ourselves. We are critical of ourselves, judging ourselves, and therefore constantly we pass ourselves or fail ourselves. When do we fail ourselves? When we fail to respond the way I would have expected the response from others. And when do I pass myself? When I do respond in the way that I would have expected from others. It has to be a deliberate act. Today, at least. Therefore, what is success? Happiness. What is happiness? Feeling good about myself. Being comfortable with myself. Accepting myself. Very important. So success makes you happy. You're happy when you are comfortable with yourself. So today, you know what I need to do? I need to achieve a goal. I need to fulfill a desire. I need to reach my ambition. Something I need to do out there in order to make me feel good about myself. But ultimate result is what? That just became instrumental. That I pass the exam is instrumental in making me feel good about myself. That I got promotion or something desirable is just an occasion or instrument which results into my making feel good about myself. So ultimately, what is success? If happiness is success, then what is success really? Feeling good about myself. Does it make sense to you?
I have a question.
So when you ask question about what we are talking, so that we don't get distracted. Yes, please.
So, you said about success and accepting ourselves. My question to you is on the need of it. So, if we have a goal and we accept ourselves, isn't it more likely that we don't push towards a goal?
He's concerned. What if I accept myself and I have no incentive to push myself? But unfortunately, you have no freedom to accept yourself. That acceptance has to happen. If you could, by will, accept yourself, nobody would reject themselves. But self-acceptance happens and self-rejection happens. Therefore, we need to do something by which self-acceptance happens and avoid doing that by which self-rejection happens. So this is a standard question. Swamiji, you say that we should be content. Suppose I am content. You cannot be. Unless you do something worthy, you cannot feel the contentment. Otherwise, who will not be content? You say, we will write, slogan, be happy. What do you mean, be happy? If I could be happy, why should I be unhappy at all? Keep smiling, that is possible. That's an action. Keep smiling, that also, I can at the most, make an appearance of smiling. Action is dependent upon my will. But this feeling good is not dependent upon my will. It has to happen, for which I have to do something for it to happen. And for that, I am required to follow that value. What is value? Value is doing to others what I expect them to do to me, and refraining from doing to others what I do not want them to mean. That's called a value in any situation. So a simple way of determining what would be the right response in a given situation, a simple way would be for me to place myself in the position of that person and ask myself, how would I have liked to be treated if I was in that position? Swamiji, he has done this, he must be punished. I ask myself, what would I like to be like if I had made a mistake? Would I like to be punished or would I like to be forgiven? How would I have liked to be treated? You like to be punished or like to be forgiven? So ideally, what's the value? Forgiving becomes a value. Punishing is not the value. But Swamiji, if you don't punish, then what will happen to all these criminals and stuff like that? You don't punish them. Ideally. Punishment is a reaction, comes from anger. When somebody does something which in my opinion is offensive, then that makes me angry, and punishment is usually my response out of anger. However, if I have this value of being forgiving, forgiving does not mean not doing something, understand? Forgiving does not mean letting him go. Forgiving is a state of mind where I enjoy the free will to make the right choice. Each of these values, whether honest, this is not the description of an honesty is not the description of an action. Honesty is my interpretation of a situation. And we'll talk about that. Meaning a value is ultimately my interpretation of what it means in a given situation. There is no such action called non-violence or truthfulness. Meaning that a surgeon can be a violent fellow. He can put his knife in my stomach and a lot of blood may go out. Looks like a violent action, but it is not violent because it is done for my well-being. So very often it is the intention behind the action that determines that value. We will talk about that. A given action is not a value. It is the intention behind that action that determines. So forgiving is not the description of an action. You can arrest that fellow and you can cause physical hardship to that person also, and you still be a forgiving person. As long as your action is not out of cruelty, not out of anger, not out of cruelty, then you will take into consideration what are the norms in the society and what should be done to this person in order for the safety of the society, and you may have to imprison that person. If in your judgment you feel that given punishment will help this person, that you may do, meaning that forgiving does not mean that just letting go, which may not be in the best interest of that person also. Forgiving is my state of mind, my attitude. Therefore, in order to determine, if it's not clear to me how I should respond to a given person, if it's not clear to me what is the right action, then a good method would be to place myself in the position of that person and ask myself, how would I like to be treated if I was in that? You can become a yogi by doing this. Lord Krishna described this person as a great yogi, a supreme yogi. Can you imagine? There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita which says, Atma pammena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo matah. This is a verse in the 6th chapter of the Gita. What Lord Krishna says that in a given situation, I should place myself as a standard. Meaning that I should try to treat others as I would treat myself. Now, I always treat myself that I always want to make myself happy. Is it not so? And I would not want to make myself unhappy. I'm very clear about that. So if I have to treat that person as I treat myself, then my attempt should be to make that person happy and not that person unhappy. Simple. Not easy, but simple to understand and talk. But these are values which are very demanding of us, because to follow any value, it becomes necessary for me to keep that impulse in the check. Impulse of reacting, impulse of punishing, impulse of whatever. Retaliating. So it seems to be easy for me to retaliate. When I'm offended, I retaliate by offending, in return. If somebody hurts me, my immediate reaction is to hurt them back. Somebody insults me, to do the same thing. Tit for tat is my, instinctive or habitual reaction. For not doing that, and for doing what is right, first of all, it would be necessary for me to not become controlled by my habit or my impulse. I have to be deliberate, self-controlled, and determine what is right and act in that manner. What's the reward of all this? Reward is, I feel good about myself. That's the reward. Whenever I follow a value, Whenever I follow the value of honesty, truthfulness, non-violence, kindness, compassion, I can guarantee you that you will necessarily feel good about yourself. When you feel good about yourself, you're happy, you're successful. So ultimately, what are you seeking through all the success in the world? To be happy, to feel good about yourself, that you get right away. What you get by the worldly success, which is uncertain by the way, whether even after getting admission, whether you are, it will necessarily make you happy or not, there is no guarantee. Today you feel that a given thing will make you happy and therefore you want it. When you actually get it, God alone knows whether that same thing will remain. Meaning that whether some event or some gain will make me happy, there is no guarantee. However, when you follow the right value, it will make you happy. There is a guarantee. How can you say that, Swamiji? I know it. Because whenever I act in harmony with the existing order, then I am acting in keeping my own nature. Therefore, I am in harmony with myself, and therefore I feel good about myself, happy about myself. Meaning that the way, what each one of us is seeking and understanding is one simple thing. We are just seeking to be successful, which is another name of saying that we are seeking to be happy, which happens when I feel good about myself, when I accept myself, when I approve myself. Can I feel good about myself if I reject myself? No. And following a value is a sure means, and only means, again. You can think of something else which can guarantee you happiness. You can come up with something and tell me. If it's not right now, you can tell me, think about it. But only thing that can make us happy, other than all these sense pleasures and stuff like that, I don't want to talk about that you enjoy, that's okay. But then, that is a small, because that's Vedanta and I don't want to influence you with that. Enjoy your life. But recognize that is a small fraction, because how much can you eat? How much can you watch? How much, every sense has a limitation of how much you can consume. The happiness that comes by consumption has a limitation because you can always consume limited, and then you become, then you feel that there's enough. Like when you eat, how much can you consume? A time comes when no more. And this is true with every kind of pleasure. How much music can you listen to? How many movies can you... In 1982, when the television first came to India and all this video, and people were watching movies the whole night, one after the other, one after the one after the other. So they never did that before. So you want to like a glutton, you want to, but then how long? No, nobody does it. You get used to that. It loses its charm in no time. There is what they call the law of diminishing return. Have you heard this? I'm sure. Meaning that the return that an object of pleasure gives you keeps on diminishing as the time goes. The pleasure that I get from first plate of ice cream is something. From second plate of ice cream, little less. Third plate of ice cream, little less. Fourth plate of ice cream, I don't know. Fifth plate of ice cream, it all comes out. Is it not so? I'm not saying there is no pleasure in the world. There is. And that pleasure does give you happiness. Right now I will accept it with you. But this much you should know, that the happiness you can get from them, number one, is always has a limit. You get used to it and your mind wants variety. Even when you get your BMW and you enjoy, driving and so forth, how long? The excitement remains for the first period, some period of time. I don't know how many days because I haven't experienced that, but for some period of time. Then you get used to it. Is it not so? We can get used to anything. Even becoming President of the United States, in 2-3 days, then once all the pressures come upon that, but then because anything that comes to you also brings its baggage with it, and nothing comes free, so you have to first of all pay the price of getting that object of pleasure, and then even while you're enjoying also, you keep on paying price. What I'm saying is that, so that happiness that comes, you cannot make that as the goal of your life because that is going to cheat you. What you want is sustained happiness, not these bouts of happiness coming and going, and which is unpredictable, which loses its value in course of time. That's how the mind is. It just gets used to anything, then it wants something else. Why would they otherwise come up with the new iPhone with every year? Why do they do that? They know us. They know that this fellow gets used to it, and then why do they come with new models of car? Why do they do that? Every time new dress, all sorts of new things keep on coming, and we're always looking for it. Because I had this old thing. And now that doesn't excite me anymore, doesn't turn me on anymore. I need something else. This kind of stuff that comes from being turned on is there, but as I said, it is a small percentage of happiness in your life. And you in your time determine what price you have to pay for being turned on. It doesn't come free. But you still have it, I don't care. You yourself will discover, what it means. But this much I can guarantee you, that you get sustained happiness by simply following the basic values of life. And you think of any time you were happy when you got success. You'll find that you felt good. And then think of what happened to you when you perform a small act of kindness. We all do now and then. With the same sense of self-worth, self-acceptance, feeling good about yourself. That thing came and went away. But every time you remember your act of kindness, you feel good every time. And encourages you to do more and more of it. Therefore the values are valuable. What is most valuable to me is success, which is happiness, which is feeling good about myself. And what happens to me when I follow a value? Feel good about myself. Meaning success, happiness, meaning success. That means that following a value becomes a means of achieving what I am seeking in my life. And that success can take you up to moksha, which I won't talk about right now, some other class. Because we don't want to burden you with all kinds of things, but just for your information. You can get moksha. That may be the only word for you, but you can get absolute freedom, total happiness, simply by, and it is not easy to follow values, that I can tell you. Otherwise everybody would do that. Because it extracts a price from us. What is the difficulty in following a value? Because usually in following a value, I have to let go something. What? Something that otherwise is important to me, which I think is a means of happiness, like money, etc. I have to let go the value of that, attachment to that, holding on to that, which becomes painful. Passing through customs, and when customs officer asks me, Swami, do you have something to declare? Any declarable goods are there? Dutiable goods are there? Then the battle happens inside. Because I do have that. I'm carrying two big suitcases, containing so many things which in India is all dutiable, and if they add up all that stuff, it amounts to a lot of money. In fact, this is my friends have given me, and they have given me, Swami, don't worry, we're giving you this money for paying duty. Don't worry. I tell them I will to pay duty. Here is the money. But even though they have given money, I don't want to part with that. I still do not want to pay duty because I want to save that money. That this money is important to me. So for a simple thing, for me to be honest at that time, I have to let go my attachment to money. Is it not so? Which is painful. That is called short-term pain, But then, when I display that courage to tell the truth, and display the courage to part with that money, all right, have it. How do I feel? I feel proud of myself. Is it not so? I feel worthy because whenever I do something right, against the resistance from your own mind, you won a battle. And that's a real success. Winning that battle is a real success because it makes you feel worthy in your own perception. What matters to me is how I feel about myself. When I come out, people ask me, Swami, did you have to pay any duty? I said, yeah. They won't say anything on my face. Behind my back they say he's stupid. Because paying duty is stupidity, supposedly. Not paying is supposed to be. So maybe. But if you know what you are doing is right thing, it would not matter to you. Meaning all this stuff will not matter to you when you are quite assured of yourself. And that self-worth and self-esteem is what you develop. Biggest problem we have is self-esteem. Is one of the biggest problems every human being has. And that is because I failed to show the courage of doing right things. If you have value for doing what is right, by this understanding, by this discussion, that what is doing right in a given situation is a means of happiness and success. And what I am seeking in my life is success and happiness, and therefore doing what is right is a means of that. You have to convince yourself about it by whatever arguments and reasoning you need. And that's the kind of question I would expect from you. That you should be convinced. That means that doing right, that it must become your conviction. Rightness coming from me, and hopefully I am giving you adequate reasoning also to make you see that fact. But in case after all the discussion also you have not yet seen this fact, that doing right, meaning following a value, is a means and only means of success or happiness, if you are still not convinced, I would want you to come up with questions, today, now or later. But what is most important is to develop this conviction that what is right is a means of happiness and only means of happiness in life for a human being. That is my very, very, what shall I say, far-reaching statement. And I'm saying that with a lot of confidence, to create in you also that confidence. And you test that to do what is right will be painful, otherwise everybody will do right. And we always want to avoid pain, that's our nature. Take a shortcut. It is usual nature to take shortcut, avoid pain. Understandable, because nobody likes pain. But if I realize that doing right does involve pain, but it is short-term pain which brings about long-term gain. So thus there are two choices in every situation. Short-term pain, long-term gain, or what's the other choice? Short-term gain and? Because when I do something wrong, there would be some gain, otherwise I won't do that. But later on, I regret what I did. There would be a sense of guilt. When does guilt arise? When I go against my own self. Because we said, this honesty, truthfulness is nature of myself. And when I violate that value, I am violating my own self, and that's how creating ground for all the conflict in my mind. All the conflicts and worries and anxiety and all sorts of stresses are simply because of violating values, nothing else. There is no stress anywhere if you simply follow these values. Meaning that if you are willing to accept the pain that comes, that's a pain that builds you, that shapes you. For any worthwhile gain, there is no pain and no gain. You know, a sculptor takes a very rough and tough stone, and what he does with it? With his chisel and hammer, he causes a lot of pain to that stone. Thank God stone doesn't have life, so I guess it doesn't feel pain. But imagine that stone has life. How much pain it would be? It would be very painful. What's the ultimate gain? A beautiful form is carved out of that. Is it not so? What this sculptor does is, apparently, he just removes all the veiling. There was the beauty inherently there, which was veiled by these outer layers, and the sculptor simply removes those layers. He doesn't impart any beauty to that, it was inherently there. But to bring to manifestation the inherent beauty, he had to be bitter to be sweet. Thus, all this value, each value is like that chisel and hammer. Every time we follow, it is painful. But the pain is like the pain that the stone suffers in order that its inherent beauty comes out. And what is our inherent beauty? I said in the morning, inherently, each one of us is a beautiful, kind, loving person. That's our true nature. Right now we don't have the benefit of that. Now and then we experience, but mostly we don't have the benefit. Because a lot of layers are there. Vedanta will call it ignorance, but I won't bother with that. But think that a lot of layers are there. And those layers have to be removed. And that will not happen automatically. It has to be that process has to be undertaken. Which is a deliberate practicing of the value. But a value can be practiced only when it becomes valuable to me. When I realize that a value is a means of achieving the goal of my life, which is what I'm seeking in life. A value is a means of achieving that. More I'm convinced about it, more valuable it will become to me. Therefore, a value can be only practiced if it is valuable to me. It is called value because there are people who see value in that. Scriptures see value in that. Teachers see value in that. I should see value in that. Meaning it should become my value. That is when I see the value of that value. Either you call it my value or call it assimilated value. Once a value is assimilated, no conflict, no pain, it just becomes spontaneous. Our Swami used to give a simple example of assimilated value. Each one has a value for hygiene. And particularly these days, they all go to computer, internet, and see what's in there, what's again. Swami, don't eat this, don't eat this. Nothing is left for eating. But anyway, so the thing is, hygiene is a big value. You can't eat gluten, okay, and then you can't eat this, and you can't eat dairy. Oh, I don't know what is left. Swami, I'm a vegan, thank you. And I have gluten-free diet, all right. And then there are so many kinds of diets are there. Somebody doesn't eat what grows in the ground, that's another thing, Somebody eats only what is growing up, not what is going down. You add up all of these things, leaves nothing for you, Anyway, that's again my personal thing. But the thing is, value for hygiene. Our Swami would ask this question. You are hungry for the whole day and you are badly looking for food and you find a piece of bread in garbage. Will you pick up that piece of bread and eat it? You find a piece of bread in garbage. You are hungry. Would you eat that bread? You think so? Huh? You don't know? Huh? However hungry you are.
Would I personally? I just have never been that hungry, but I've seen, you know, but like you go to a city, you will see people that are so desperate and so hungry, they will eat it out of the garbage.
That is because the value of hunger is more than hygiene, that's all. When the value of hygiene is assimilated, you will not eat that piece of bread because you know what it means and thereby no conflict. You see it and there's not any conflict in you at all when a value is assimilated. We know for sure that Swami, I know because what vegan thing does to me, then that the cheese doesn't attract you at all. Hopefully, in the beginning there is a problem. Ice cream, oh, but that's dairy. Cheese, that is dairy. All good things are all dairy. So when you want to become for whatever crazy reason you want to become a vegan, I don't know why you want to be, but maybe you want to. Somebody asked my elder brother, why don't you give up tea? He said, what bad thing I have done to give up? Why should I give up tea? What papa have I done to give up tea? But suppose that's your value, vegan, then all kinds of temptations are there, but once the value is assimilated, then you know the value of being a vegan. Swami, I feel very good about me. It's like they all tell me, I feel very light and I'm good. And that will be in next birth for me, but that's what they do. Suppose you discover the value of being a vegan, then all that stuff will not attract you. In the beginning, you're self-control because of all these years you've been eating those things and enjoying them, and therefore there will be temptation. And to follow a vrata or a penance of being a vegan, you will have to keep under control those temptations. That is painful. But by so doing, a time comes when now they don't attract you at all. Is it not so? That's called totally assimilated value. When no conflict is there and no pain is there, all there is just gain. So thus, in the beginning, it requires deliberation and self-control because always violating a value has some benefit, otherwise nobody would violate. Some benefit that I see. I have to overcome the temptation of the short-term benefit that I get and deliberately practice that value and discover the fact that it gives me a long-term benefit. I have to discover it. Swami tells you, but you must discover it. Then it becomes your value. Swamiji was saying, that is Swamiji was saying. Then it becomes a lip service. Again, our Swami used to tell us this little episode. On a tree, there were so many little birds, small birds, parrots were there. You know what a parrot keeps repeating something. So there were many parrots, or small parrots on the tree, and there was an old parrot. And he saw a hunter coming towards them with a net. And so he told these fellows, Be careful of hunter's net. Be careful of hunter's net. That's the right advice, isn't it? So this fellow started repeating, be careful of hunter's net. Be careful of hunter's net. Be careful. They did not know what it meant. Who is a hunter and what is a net and what does a hunter do? This was not clear to them. They kept on repeating, beware of hunter's net. Hunter came, put a net, they all got trapped and still kept on repeating, beware of hunter's net. That is called lip service. It doesn't do much. So these fellows did not assimilate the meaning of this statement, what is meant by being alert, aware of hunter's net. So if these words are not meaningful to us, then they remain, then they don't help us. So all these words about a value of non-violence, etc., unless you have seen the value of it. And that is what we have to do. Everybody knows what values are. I mean, I can give a lecture, we may do that. We'll talk about a couple of values so that we get a clarity about those important values in life. But unless that is assimilated by me, unless that becomes my value, unless it becomes valuable to me, more valuable than... And so still there will be things that are more valuable and I will violate that. But in course of time, when I discover that it is the most valuable, there is nothing, that will take time. That hopefully a day will come then you find that non-violence is the most valuable. Then even being President of the United States. What I'm saying is sometimes stakes are pretty high, and so we may, that the time may come, then I surrender. But if you want to get moksha, then a time should come when you can unconditionally follow a value. There is no conflict, no pain. We know these stories. Stories are very good. You know Ramayana, isn't it? Lord Rama, he went to exile for how many years? 14 years. Why did Rama go to exile? Why? Who asked him to go to forest? Don't tell me you don't know. Lord Rama went to forest exile for 14 years by whose command? Kaikeyi? No. His father's command. Kaikeyi may have made his father, but ultimately command came from whom? Fathers. Pitrudevo bhava, may you look upon your father, treat him, So, a value. You may not have that value, but he had that value. What is the value? Following the command. Today those values are, I don't know, who cares? Father and mother. I don't think my father understands Swami. My mother doesn't know what she's talking. So we can easily dismiss those things. But that was not the case those days. And fathers also just didn't say what they also were mature and responsible. But this was a value. Following command of father, being truthful to the words of the father, to make my father's words truthful. That's the value of Satyam. You know what it meant? Next day he was to be coronated. Great empire, he would have been a sovereign. Just let it go and went to forest. So he goes to seek permission of his mother. His mother thought he was to be coronated. He says, my father has given the kingdom of forest, he says, Instead of kingdom of Ayodhya, given the kingdom of forest. No, nothing in his mind. We are nowhere there. But what I'm saying is, this is called, that if you can follow a value like that, you are liberated. I can guarantee you. Tulsidas describes in a verse in Ramcharitmanas that when he was it was declared, or his father himself told that tomorrow you're going to be coronated, there was no elation in him. And next morning he was told that you have to go to the forest, there was no depression in him at all. Meaning that the cheerfulness of his face was not affected either way. What I'm saying is, this example I'm giving you is that when the value is assimilated, it causes no conflict, no hesitation, no pain. And they are the heroes in every tradition. They are the heroes. We are not there, I don't, but I'm just telling you the value of a value. What a value does to us. So, more we understand its value, more value it becomes to us, more we are willing to put up with the pain that following that value gives. That's the whole idea. If speaking truth doesn't cause any pain, nobody will tell a lie. So normally we are not liars, we speak truth. When something is at stake, then this question comes. Truth means this, and then that means this is at stake. Then the conflict arises. Then who wins is a question. How much, what is the nature, what is the extent of the assimilation of value? They'll decide whether value wins or other thing wins. So value of value. Our Swami used to say, a value is a value when its value becomes valuable to me. A value is a value when its value becomes valuable to me. And it becomes valuable to me when I see its value. So, with that we'll conclude this evening, and tomorrow we'll take up some important values of life and discuss them. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. So this evening, what do you like to have? A question and answer session or some other session?
Question and answer session.
Okay. You have questions? All right.